the Alt Asset Allocation Podcast, exploring alternative investment opportunities available to the everyday investor. Here's your host, Ben Lakoff.
Hello and welcome to the Alt Asset Allocation Podcast. Today's interview is with Jim McNelis, who is the creator of Avastars and a hardcore NFT Degen. Have you seen Ready Player One? Have you heard of the MetaVerse? Wild, I know, but there are definitely some opportunities for savvy investors if they're willing to spend some time in this world and know what they're looking for. In this conversation, we discuss the collectibles as investments mindset, why NFTs might be so interesting, the metaverse and what it might look like, and finally, Avastars and what's going on with Jim's company. There's a lot going on, but before you listen, please don't forget to like or subscribe to the podcast, or even better, leave a review. This really helps more people find the podcast and keeps this thing going, and it really helps. Jim is a collector at heart and loves all things non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. We could have chatted for hours on this fascinating topic. We tried to keep it around how investors can get involved, but there's so much happening right now, and it's really, really exciting. Either way, enjoy this conversation with Jim McNelis of Avastars. Jim, super excited to have you on the podcast today. You are a hardcore NFT Degen, and you're also the creator of Avastars, but you are a hardcore NFT Degen. I'm super excited to have you.
You got that right, Ben. I'm happy to be on here today, man. I am a hardcore NFT Degen, and I also happen to create some NFT projects.
I like it. NFTs are super hot right now, as you know. I'm sure your Twitter following has been exploding, and we'll definitely get into all of that. But I wanted to start off, how did you get involved into NFTs, and what did you do before going full hardcore Degen?
Actually, what I was doing was I was in between jobs. I had sold my business. I was previously setting up email for companies, and I sold that business and was kind of hanging out trying to look for the next opportunity, and I ended up actually collecting a bunch of Legos to resell. And a couple years went by in doing that, and I finally was able to start selling some sets for profits because they had retired and appreciated in value. And it's a really interesting collectible because it's a fun thing if you like to build Legos, and you can basically buy a set and pay for it by, hanging on to a second set for a couple of years. But when I came time to sell all this stuff, I was having to go on eBay, and I had to take care of creating the listing and setting it up, and then taking care of the logistics of shipping the item afterwards, and then, getting reviews and things like that. And it was a lot of effort in addition to having already just put the money to work and buying the Lego set and waiting for the appreciation to happen. And so I started to look at some alternatives. I realized along the same vein, I could potentially make money mining cryptocurrency. So I was looking for an alternative income there. And as I started to mine cryptocurrency is when Crypto Kitties was launched. And I don't know how familiar your audience is with Crypto Kitties is, but it's the top NFT non-fungible token that's ever been created to date. It's the biggest brand to date. Right around 2 million kitties exist right now. At the peak in December of 2017, when I was doing the mining, what I'm talking about, there were cats selling upwards of like $100,000 kind of regularly for a couple weeks there. 100 ETH or so at the time, and ETH was around $1,000 per ETH. So it was really wild and crazy, and it opened my eyes to the opportunity of digital collectibles as an alternative to, having to go and sell physical items that I've collected. And so I bought my first cat on December 5th, I think. I named it Katniss because my cat had just run away. She came back a couple weeks later, thankfully, but she had been missing for like a day. And so I was replacing her with a digital cat. And that was really the start of it all. I mined for, another year or so, and I was diving deep into into altcoins at the time, and doing really well like everybody else was. And that my interest in that waned after a couple months. I'm more of a collector and enjoy the collectible aspect of the baseball cards and coins and things like that from my past. So I was really drawn back to Crypto Kitties yet again. And I really liked the idea that you could have 2 Crypto Kitties and you could breed them together and it would create another kitty. You have to pay a fee to do that, But if you breed the right traits together and you get the right random outcome, it could be a net positive result for you. You could make money doing this. And there were people making money doing it. So I kind of just took, was determined that, okay, if other people have figured this out, then I can figure it out too. And that was really in February of 2018 when I really just dove full time into NFTs, and I haven't really looked back since. That was when I became a Degen that month. And I wasn't
Nice.
probably hardcore until a few months later, but yeah, that's the
Nice.
brief beginning there.
I have a ton of questions, obviously. I just did a quick Google, and the collectibles market is about $370 billion globally. This is a gigantic alternative investment. People are buying these collectibles, holding them, expecting to sell them at a higher price. But I'm curious, like going back to these Legos, did you buy them with the intent of, and I'm doing air quotes, but investing in them as collectibles, or because you just wanted to like build a Ferris wheel or something?
No, I mean, I built one of just about everything I bought, but I did it as an investment for sure. What I realized was I had always loved Legos as a kid, and I had a bunch of time on my hand, and I started building some sets. And then as I kind of tend to go really deep into anything that I get into. And so I started doing research on rare Lego sets that I could potentially buy and build. And in doing that, I uncovered a community of people who would go and speculate on Lego sets. And then there was this whole system to follow where, you don't buy the sets that have just come out. You buy the ones that are getting ready to retire. So when you can catch wind of a retirement, or that something's getting ready to retire, or you can get like wind of where really rare sets are sold for that day, at that time, at that moment, if you can find these communities, then you could potentially benefit. And I started learning how to like go find deals on Lego sets. I mean, I remember I went to New York City and I wasn't even planning on buying Legos, but of course, I mean, I was way into it at the time. So I was going to go visit the Lego store in Manhattan, and I was going to go to the FAO Schwartz, check it out. But lo and behold, I go to these places, into the Toys R Us, and they have like all these incredible sets for like half off. So like I just was able to bring my dollar cost average down on multiple sets there, just ridiculously, in New York. So I had to figure out how to ship these things then from New York. I lived in California at the time. I ended up shipping them to my sister's family in Virginia. And but what like such a like I could have sold those sets anywhere else for regular retail price and doubled up on everything I spent in New York. It was actually just an insane money making opportunity. But yeah, there's actually like I said, there's communities and stuff around this, and I'm still sitting on most of my Legos. I actually had somebody else do the eBay stuff for me 2 years ago, and I actually put that money into NFTs, and they sold, I don't know, probably 15% of what I had collected, and I don't know, it was probably worth about $8,000 or $10,000. So
Nice.
yeah, I think I dropped about 30 grand on it. I didn't do everything super perfectly there as far as a business and investment. I mean, I didn't like do any write off of expenses or anything like that. I'm not making as much. It's not pure profit on one end of it, but it's really was enjoyable and fun, and there actually is money to be made. I mean, these things go up like pretty consistently, like 200, 300, 400% in value. The best set I have, I think I bought for about 15 of them for $35, including shipping. And it's a Mars rover set, Curiosity rover. And it is now goes for over $350. And I still got like 10 of those left. So, you
That's
know,
that's that's insane.
yeah,
So
look into it more, man. It's actually really interesting, like little subculture.
yeah, I wanna kind of go down this path a little bit because I think it helps better understand the collectible investor mindset, and then how that transitions into these digital collectibles, which can be
Hmm.
NFTs. With these tangible ones, obviously, if you buy $100,000 worth of Legos, like you're going to need a storage facility to put them in because they're gigantic. So
Yep.
obviously the whole digital aspect, you can store it on a USB key pretty darn easily. But I want to back up a bit and just think about like your mindset on how do you choose Legos as the collectible that you want to invest in. What characteristics are you using to determine value and resale value? And then it sounds like liquidity in this all comes from a reseller or a secondary market like eBay. I would imagine, are you checking liquidity before you look into these? Yeah, just walk me through like Walk me through the why.
I know and understood Legos to start, and it's something that is just really interesting to me. I've had, 40 years of growing up around Legos to just understand it, as I'm sure many of us have. I mean, I was, always the guy who asked for Legos for Christmas and stuff growing up. So that was the first thing, is just understanding the market or understanding the product that the market is related to. And then I think then I made mistakes early on. I purchased sets that had just come out as investments. And that's when I was on these forums and stuff. And I realized that like I should be accumulating these other sets instead of the sets that I just purchased, because I was going to have to let those sets I had just purchased sit for at least 2 years before they retired, and then another 2 years before they gain in value. So the next step was understanding the appreciation cycle for a lot of these, for these sets in general. And I was looking at the premium sets mostly. I wasn't trying to look at the smaller sets, which in some ways could do a lot better. There was this little train. It was like $5 for, it's like a Christmas train, or it was like this little green train in a yellow box, and it was like literally $5. And people were just stocking up on those. Like that was the big future play. And I don't want to distract myself by looking it up on eBay right now, but if you look up like a little tiny Lego train, should be green. It's like called the Emerald Express, I think. Anyways, it's probably like $25 or $30 now. Like not a bad play. Like really easy, like tiny, easy to ship. You could even do it in a blister pack and maybe get away with it. But anyways, like understanding these different facets of it, like you could go the extremely low end and try to go for something small and iconic. I was aiming more towards the high end, so like the super star destroyer from Star Wars, the Death Star from Star Wars, the big Batmobiles and things like that. I was going for the higher end stuff, which didn't work out as well in some cases. Like 5 or 6 years down the road, those bigger sets have appreciated in value, but maybe only 2x. Whereas like these mid-range and smaller range sets like appreciated much, much more. So I did, make some mistakes there, but I at the time had my eye on, there was this one set, it was like the green corner shop or something. I'm getting the name wrong, but it was a creator expert set, which is a class of set. And it was in a town where you can build like these modular buildings and put them together. That thing was selling for like, a couple grand. And that was like what really drew me in, was like knowing that like there were some sets that I had seen a couple years earlier on the shelves that I couldn't get anymore, that are now worth more money. And if I had just bought them, that it could have been worth more. So yeah. And then just like I said, though, understanding the nuance in that it's not a hard market really, man. I mean, there's demand for these sets after they retire, because people want to build out like more of the similar things they've already built, or that it fits in somewhere to their building strategy. And the people who collect these things are adults that have money. They have disposable income to spend on them. The market's you do need to do your research on the markets and everything. And they're not like, there is liquidity though. The Legos is a pretty popular segment. It will sell. The downside is that eBay and Amazon, they take their pound of flesh. They definitely charge fees, and the fees for selling collectibles and Legos are more than some other categories too. So there's a lot of like that sort of stuff that I didn't really count on, but I waited so long. The stuff I bought was mostly in 2013. So we're talking about a 7 or 8 year investment now, where I could sell anything that I have left for a profit. But I mean, it probably was worth it in some areas to put my money somewhere else instead. Still a fun thing to invest in.
Yeah, and with these platforms like eBay, you're paying for that convenience and that distribution, because selling these things via Craigslist or garage sale, you certainly wouldn't get the same value.
Orders of magnitude easier. Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's worth it to sell on there when it comes down to it, because you're going to get the best price. But
absolutely.
So the premium is built, your cost and the premium for the marketplace are kind of built into the pricing as well.
Yeah, and I did just do a little search. The Lego Creator Emerald Night Train goes for $500, say.
Oh no, that's the bigger one.
Okay.
It's a little one. It's a little tiny one.
I was gonna say that's 100x.
But that would have been ridiculous.
I think an important aspect to share here is that not all returns are kind of equal in this case. So like I mean 5x on a $10 investment versus 3x on a $10,000 investment. I'd take the 3x on the larger investment all day long, right? Especially with the admin of selling these things, shipping them, all of this stuff. So
Yep.
I,
Only having to
I,
sell once versus 100 times too, and only having to do that shipping once versus 100 times.
okay, so I think that helps transitioning into these digital collectibles. Your initial toe in the water was Crypto Kitties. What attracted you to Crypto Kitties initially?
Yeah, I think another aspect I should point out is that I am a avid gamer, and I've spent thousands upon thousands of dollars on virtual clothing for my characters inside of different games. Like Dota 2 is a big one that I play, and I've just probably, like I said, I've dropped thousands of dollars in there. So I was already conditioned to spend money on digital items. Now I think a lot of people are inherently like, these days you have your mobile apps and mobile games and things like that, your different experiences where you buy gems or buy, cosmetic items for your character in Fortnite or whatever it might be. But that's the other part that kind of is a key in all of this, I think, is the collectibles aspect for me, and like trying to make money investing in something like Lego. But then also like frustration that the current collectibles that I have spent thousands of dollars on, they're not easy to extract value back out of, because there is second markets for like my Dota 2 items, but it kind of is locked in the Steam system unless you get creative. So having a desire though to have that sort of selling experience that I had there and that I had in World of Warcraft on the auction house when I was playing that for years, and was able to go and farm items and then craft items and then go sell them on the marketplace and then make money from that. And if you really wanted to, you could sell that to a gold farmer and make actual money, not a lot, but you could make money doing that. That was always a cool thing to me as a gamer, is the ability to actually like do something in a game that was valuable, like actually valuable, and you could actually get cash from it. And so that's what NFTs unlocked here, that has been kind of sitting there waiting to be unlocked for all this time, is that there is now a universal way to represent value in a digital asset through this protocol of non-fungible tokens. And that you could potentially, it doesn't exist really today in this way, but that the potential is that like I could have my Dota 2 items be non-fungible tokens and potentially go sell them outside of the Steam marketplace for cryptocurrency, or any other game for that matter, or potentially like, does that item have value outside of the game? Like maybe not. So there's all these like weird fuzzy questions that come up around that as well. But the idea of being able to take the thing that you bought, that you do own, but like right now in Dota I only own that on their system, whereas when I buy a crypto kitty, I own that on their website and it reflects that. But also absent of their website, I own that token. We don't have to ask permission from CryptoKitties to do that. It's just the way that these protocols work. So this decentralized marketplaces and the way that these tokens ownership is verifiable on the blockchain, but that blockchain is decentralized and it's not like just in a central game server somewhere, is extremely appealing to me when I think about like all the money I've spent on video game items. So
Yeah, buying all of this clothing and games, and like you said, there's like centralized secondary markets sometimes, but they're not very transparent and difficult.
yeah, and you can get scammed.
Yeah, but the real
Yeah.
difference is that these in-game items aren't transferable across multiple games, and I think this is the big allure of NFTs. Is like you said, I mean, you have ownership of this thing that you've purchased. It's transferable, it's uncensorable, all the things that come with blockchain. But how would this work bigger picture? I mean, there would have to be a number of these worlds kind of collaborating, like a metaverse. Like what's like the 20-year down the road, what does this look like? How do NFTs play into gaming in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, you just said the magic word there, which is metaverse.
For my listeners that aren't that clear on what a metaverse, like just walk me through what that is.
Sure, I've got homework, and then I'll also explain. So, have you seen Ready Player One, the movie, or read the book, or both?
It's where we're going and terrifying, but yes.
Okay, so you've seen it. You've seen the movie then, because I think the movie is a amazing visual example of the metaverse and of non-fungible tokens at the same time. So if you're listening and you haven't seen Ready Player One, the thought experiment or the mind exercise, the exercise that you should do, and you're interested in learning more about this and what the metaverse is, and I'll explain in just a second. But you would just basically go watch the movie Ready Player One, which was by Steven Spielberg. It's an excellent film. It's fun, and it's about virtual reality worlds and you're basically following along with a character named Parsival who is in this virtual reality world called the Oasis. And in the Oasis, you can be any character you want to be. Users are able to create their own user generated content and sell it. And one of the best friends of this main character is a builder who builds these items and sells them for a lot of money in the metaverse, or in the Oasis, which is I'm trying to lead to the analogy of the metaverse. Anyways, it's this virtual world. It's many virtual worlds that are stitched together. And if you watch the movie, if you imagine every item that they're wearing, every look that their hair has, every weapon, every vehicle, everything that they're interacting with in this virtual world, if you imagine that that is a non-fungible token of some sort, and that these credits that they're collecting as they're fighting and battling and winning, that those are cryptocurrency, it's really easy to imagine, where non-fungible tokens fit into a future where we are spending a large amount of time in virtual reality. So then to take a smaller step back, what the metaverse is, when I talk about the metaverse, it's to me, it means, well, it's the next version of the internet for starters, because we've had this internet in place now for 40 years, 30 years, more or less, for most of us. And it's gotten better and faster, but we're still looking at like pretty much flat web pages. There's some browser-based gaming and stuff like that. But now that virtual reality is kind of starting to come into its own, and we're starting to see more and more 3D worlds that you can interact with, both with a headset on, with a virtual reality headset on, or even just in a browser in a 3D environment or in a game. That's what the next version of the internet's going to start to look like more and more as we become more native in these digital worlds that we're building. There's now in blockchain itself a couple different virtual worlds that are popping up. One of them is Decentraland, which has been pretty popular. That one was the speculating on the NFTs, the land NFTs, and that has been just crazy. I think you mentioned that you had Maddie from DCL Blogger on here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot.
Sure. So he's probably already laid that one out as deeply as you need to. There's a couple others like Crypto Voxels. There's Sandbox Game, which is coming on pretty strong. Insomnium Space. These are all different virtual reality, mixed reality platforms that people can build and create user-generated content in. And they're not connected directly, but all of them are integrating our NFTs into them in different ways and in different paces, because we're in the very beginnings of this metaverse world where you can carry your non-fungible tokens. In this case, the easiest use case right now is you can display any art that you own that's a non-fungible token in these buildings that you build. So I could put a picture of my Crypto Kitties up on the walls in any of these places and they'll show. I can also sell the Crypto Kitty on any market that supports this, and I'll be able to sell them without having to go directly through Crypto Kitties to do that. But what the metaverse is, kind of more direct platforms and the blockchain and virtual reality, it's everything working with everything. It's complete interoperability, or very close to complete interoperability. Instead of like today, what we have is we have something like Fortnite, where you get in there and you can play around in their huge and immense sandbox and this awesome, incredible experience, but you're stuck in Fortnite. You can't take then your character and personality and go into PUBG, Public Battlegrounds, which is another like battle royale. You can't do that. You're going to have to sign into a different account, and you're going to have a different look, and you're going to have different character and everything else. In the future, in the metaverse, you'll be able to take your Fortnite character and be your Fortnite character in all these different experiences. And like it might look slightly different, or it might have different like impact on the gameplay or something like that. But like the idea is that, you can take your digital assets and take them across all these different experiences and all these different realities. So sorry for getting a little lost there, but the metaverse is incredible. It's just the future of technology. It's what we're building right now. With everything that we're building, it's all going to converge: non-fungible tokens, blockchain, virtual reality, the internet, and we're just all going to be able to hang out online.
Yeah, it's going to hopefully still be important to go out to real sunshine every once in a while. Okay, these guys are building the infrastructure, Decentraland, Crypto Voxels, all of these. But the way I kind of look at this is probably kind of like the internet. Like Google and Facebook and all of these other centralized parties don't want this decentralized utopian dream of decentralized internet to happen. And it seems to me that it's the same with the metaverse. So you'll get massive pushback from these centralized games like Fortnite or whatever other ones are gaining traction. In your opinion, what catalysts do you need to see to really dump some gasoline on this fire and push forward this more decentralized, expansive metaverse?
I think some brave technology companies need to take the leap. I think that there is more opportunity to be unlocked with these open systems and open standards than there is within the walled gardens. I don't have any specific evidence to point to for that, but I believe strongly that in the long run, I believe that the trend will be towards and look, I'm a realist too. Look, I use Windows operating system. I use Mac OS. I know how to use Linux, but it's a pain, right? So like, I mean, open source software and things like that. Usually there's like better commercial versions out there. But I actually think some commercial entities are starting to poke around and realize that this next level of value, like if you look at right now, NBA Top Shot is a great example. NBA Top Shot is a new project that actually just the day that we're recording this, they just opened up their doors today. It's an open beta now. It's been in closed beta until today. It is digital basketball cards. And the cardboard basketball card market is on fire right now. I mean, I'm talking cards are selling for $1 million. And if you want to talk about alternative income, like, sports cards are huge, right? So now you've got the NBA who is partnered up with Dapper Labs, who created Crypto Kitties. Dapper Labs has created this brand new blockchain that's for collecting digital assets. We don't have to go too deeply into that, but it's pretty cool. They are launching NBA Top Shot on the blockchain, and you have these digital basketball cards. I just sold one today for 4.4 Ethereum, so about $1,600. And I got it out of a pack that I opened for like, I think it cost $230 at the time. So I actually really think that something like that has the opportunity to reach the mainstream. Like I said, it's literally just launching. I think there's like, a couple thousand people who have caught wind of this so far. And that sort of, we need a few more of those to happen before people really start to understand what's going on here. We just had Garbage Pail Kids that launched on the Wax blockchain like 2 or 3 months ago. And that was pretty big deal because it showed that it doesn't matter what blockchain these collectibles are on, which was surprising to some of us hardcore degens because we're pretty snobby about Ethereum and being on Ethereum and stuff like that. And here, like Garbage Pail Kids launches, and I bought a bunch, and a bunch of my friends did too. It was on this different blockchain that's not as popular, and that Garbage Pail Kid brand is lifted up this Wax blockchain, and now there's actually like a bunch of legit launches going on Wax now. So it's really interesting to see these like older brands that are collectibles start to re-enter the space here. We got, I think, My Little Pony and Care Bears and stuff like that. Like there's just some really interesting stuff going on right now.
Wild, wild. Speaking to the investor audience, they get on board with the metaverse coming eventually. I mean, what's the best place to find out more about this, learn more about it, and then ultimately, how can they participate by investing into it?
Good question. There are communities that are for non-fungible tokens. There's communities that are on Discord and Discord's like a chat application that like similar to Telegram. It's more gaming community focused. I think they're just trying to get more community focused in general now, but there's a lot of great communities on there. There's one that we run called Token Smart, and you could find that one by going to discord.gg/NFT. So that one's pretty easy and contextual. That one is we have a weekly, or at least once a week, we have a virtual world meetup. It's usually in CryptoVoxel, sometimes Decentraland, sometimes we do it in Mozilla Hubs, but we're trying to provide that early metaverse experience. It's actually coming up today for us at 1 o'clock my time. It's at noon Pacific every week on Thursdays. There's also one for Asia, and I believe there's somebody who's getting ready to start one for the UK and Europe as well. So that's the Discord. The Token Smart community is a good place to start just to ask people in general about NFTs. You could also, the OpenSea marketplace, I think it's OpenSea.io, is a good place to go look and see where this market action is taking place. There's also another one this last couple of weeks has been doing really well called Rarible. Rarible has been subsidizing its users for buying and selling NFTs on their marketplace. They have a governance token that they released and called Rari, R-A-R-I. And depending on, they're giving out 75,000 rare every week, and they do it proportionate to the amount of volume that buyers and sellers have on their marketplace. So there's some form of subsidy in place right now for buying and selling tokens on that marketplace. A few weeks ago, some of my friends actually made out 1-to-1, where everything they spent on the marketplace, they got back the following week. It hasn't been nearly as lucrative since then, but they just basically stacked a bunch of free NFTs for their market volume, in return for their market volume. Pretty incredible.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Okay, definitely. I'll link all those things in the show notes for sure. Looking at all of these different things that's happening in the NFT space right now, I mean, what is happening right now that gets you most excited?
Well, I'm still really excited about the project that we developed that I haven't talked too much about. I'm excited about people learning about that project, because what we did is, I've established that I'm a collector. And when I got into collecting non-fungible tokens and started to take a closer look at them, the Crypto Kitties in particular, I realized that what I was collecting at the end of the day was a token on the Ethereum blockchain that had some sort of genetic string of numbers and letters, and that outside of that, whatever I owned was still being stored centrally on CryptoKitties website. So the picture of the cat, for example. And in realizing that, and having spent at that time thousands of dollars already, I've spent much more since, but thousands of dollars at the time, and realizing that the thing I had just bought wasn't actually the picture, even though it is, it really isn't, right? Because that's not what's on the blockchain. So in my mind, whatever I bought will be contained on the blockchain. And I was a little disappointed that, like, they were talking about kitties on the blockchain, but like the kitties, like, to me, that's the art, and they weren't on the chain. And so I spent a long time. I spent a little bit over a year, and my own money, hired a developer, hired some artists, and we developed a project called Avastars. And Avastars does store the art on the blockchain, and on NFTs, there's also something called metadata. And metadata is basically the information about the token. It tells you what it is. And again, with CryptoKitties, the metadata is just that genetic hash. It doesn't tell you that cat is a. It does tell you some things. I'm sorry, I'm probably being too hard on CryptoKitties. They do say some things. They think they tell you like what generation the kitty is, and a couple, and its breeding cooldown and things like that. But it doesn't tell you straight out that what this cat looks like, and everything else. You'd have to decompile that information. So with Avastars, we actually stored the art itself on the blockchain. We figured out a pretty cool way to do that. It's very efficient. And then we also did the same thing with the metadata, so that a user 20 years from now, 50 years from now, as long as Ethereum's still alive, we don't have to be around. My company doesn't have to be around, but they could go and interact with the smart contract that exists on Ethereum, and it'll be there as long as Ethereum is. And if they own one of these tokens, they don't even have to own it to look, but they can go and put in any ID number of any Avastar, and it will kick out the SVG code for that art, and it will kick out the metadata and tell them that it's a legendary Avastar with space helmet hair, and that hair is purple. They'll be able to see that information right on the blockchain. And for me as a collector,
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So like it's all there, right? Like our website is a conduit, it's a facet, but when we go away, you can still find all of that stuff directly on the blockchain. And there's one other project. There's a couple smaller projects, I'm sorry. There's Autoglyphs by Larva Labs that has they have like basically ACII characters stored on the chain. And then there's a couple small projects that someone that works with me, Alex, he did Chain Faces, and we launched InfinFT, which is a token minting platform that stores information on chain. But as far as collectibles, Avastars is the only collectible that has all of the information stored on chain, and no one else has even come close to doing what we did with Avastars yet. So I'm incredibly excited about people discovering those. And there's a limited breeding mechanic involved there too. People can take a few Avastars and kick out a new Avastar. When you do that, the parts that you used actually get used up. You can only use them once. With kitties, you can breed them, as often as once a week. But with Avastars, once you use one of their traits, that trait can't ever be used again. So there's a limited supply that'll ever be able to be made. And the way we priced these, the way we did this is you go to Avastars.io and there's a page called Discover, and you go through and you start scrolling. And what people don't realize is they're actually just generating Avastars randomly in their browser. No one else is looking at the same ones. The ones you see are unique to you. And if you see one you like, then you can decide to teleport it or to mint it, and that will then make it into an NFT. There's different prices for different Avastars based on the rarity of their traits. They go from common to uncommon to rare to epic to legendary. The traits themselves have that ranking system, and then also the rankings of the Avastars overall follow a similar nomenclature. So common ones that have like mostly common traits and things like that, the lower score traits, those are only going to cost like 0.07. The most expensive ones are legendaries, and those cost about 15 times more at like 1.12 ETH. So what that does then is it creates an interesting game mechanic where the population of the rarity of these things is actually determined by the price, because people get discouraged from paying more for something if they can get it for the same thing for less. And with like time and patience, you can actually find some really incredible trait combinations and the common traits. So as a result, there's a ton of common Avastars in existence right now, and there's not nearly as many legendary ones, and it's actually following a nice curve, like the number of uncommons, rares, and epics. So it's interesting game mechanics there, trying to find like good value Avastars at the cheaper end. But then you have collectors who just want like the really nice stuff, so they go and look for the really expensive ones and try to find like the best ones in that expensive class.
Man,
yeah,
that is so cool. So I love the breeding aspect, and just for listeners, I mean, imagine you having two very rare baseball cards, and then somehow you could breed them and spawn another even super rare baseball card. This is kind of what these things can do. I think it's just fascinating. This scrolling aspect. So you have a discover tab. So when I'm scrolling through, I'm seeing a different mix of Avastars than other people that are scrolling. And the fact that you're just generating an algo based pricing based on scarcity or whatever that's generating these potential NFTs to mint is really cool. I haven't seen anybody else doing something like that. Is that new?
So the scrolling itself was a game called Clovers that came out. It might still be around, but it was basically scrolling through Othello boards, and I'm not really into Othello. So it was kind of a cool concept to scroll through like and see that. So we were developing it at the time, and we were doing this scrolling to just do our own internal testing. And I realized like we need to have this scrolling mechanic for people to do on the site. And so we made the change like that day in development, when I had that epiphany that we were just going to have people scroll, and that was the random element. And then I had to like, at first people were just going to pay a fixed price, and then it was going to spit out a random one, right? And it was like they'd pay a smart contract and spit it out. This scrolling like introduced a whole new mechanic, and we had to come up with a new economy based on how do we present people with rare things regularly, because you'll probably come across a legendary like one in like every 130 or 150 Avastars you scroll through will be a legendary rank. So you'll regularly come across rare things. How do you do that but also like, don't destroy the scarcity models built into like this ranking system? And it ended up being, we went through some trial and error and thoughts on like what the different caps and things like that would be. But at the end of the day, I figured out that, if we just price this on a scale, that like the price will be a deterrent for people, and that it's like aesthetics versus price question that you're going through in your mind as you're scrolling through that. And if you find one that, for example, that looks really cool, the second thing you look at then is what rarity is it? And if it's not common, then you have to like go through this decision matrix and like, is it worth it for me to pay 2 times or 4 times or 8 times or 15 times more for this one than it would be for me to try to scroll and like, what do I like about this? Should I go and try to find that in a cheaper one? And anyways, it's really interesting how that part's playing out, and more excited as like the time goes on and it's working out as I theorized. Because if somebody just went out and bought like 300 legendary ranks all of a sudden out of nowhere. Like that would just kill like the scarcity of the legendaries. But they're not incentivized to do that, right? Because it would kill it. It's like such a cool little like feedback loop or something that I've created here, I think.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'd be curious with high gas prices, though. I mean, this has got to hurt the NFT market for these lower priced NFTs, right? Is there anything you're doing to work with that?
Oh man, I wish I could say. So we feel the pain actually more than most because believe it or not, and most people don't realize this, is that we're actually paying the gas to mint these. So what happens?
Oof.
Yeah. So let's say you bought five, right? You would have to, and there are five common ones that would be 0.35 ETH. So you would have to deposit 0.35 ETH, and you have to pay the gas in order to get that ETH to us. But after that, we go in and our minters actually go and call and mint these Avastars. So we have to pay the gas at that time. With gas and we pay for fast gas too. We don't just do standard gas because we want a pretty decent user experience if possible. So we end up paying, if gas is at about 100, then we end up paying somewhere around half of, we pay about 0.035 to 0.05 in gas. So most of the transaction at that point is going towards gas. We're not making a ton of money on those commons when gas is like at 100 or higher. If it's at like 200, then we're losing money basically when they're minting commons. So we have kind of kept quiet on the promotion of it, while things have been, when gas has been so high. Things were going really well for us when we launched back in April and May, and then gas just spiked in like the June timeframe, and we kind of zipped up the shilling and just kept quiet and just decided to go with the flow, whatever other people were doing at the time. And now as gas has started to dip that back down below 100, I've started to draw more attention and awareness to them. But yeah, so from a user perspective, there's no penalty for gas being high. I mean, you have to pay the higher gas to pay us. And, I'd ask people, don't lose us money. Like if gas is above 100, please wait until it comes down. You can save your Avastars in a wish list for a later time to mint when gas is cheaper.
Nice.
But there is
Nice.
some value gained in the gas that we have to. There's like we're burning gas to create these things, right? And there's more to it than just we're not just taking that fee and keeping all of it, right? Like there's a lot of expenses and things that we're covering when people do that. And we are an indie project. I think that we will end up being. I think. Look, I think we're going to do pretty well. If you look at the market, if you look at what's out there, Avastars is going to be a shining light 5 years looking back. Crypto Kitties is great. Axie Infinity is doing amazing right now. You've got CryptoPunks, which is about as OG as you can get. And there's a bunch of other great projects. There's crypto art that we haven't even really talked about. But for collectibles, like Avastars are going to be OG as fuck, man. If I can just use that language, like they're going to be pretty legit in the long run. And they're still like out there to be found. There is a second market for them, and a slightly healthier second market than I anticipated, considering you can go to our website and still make them. But it's a ground floor opportunity for people still, because you can mint Avastars for 0.07 ETH. And you don't have to, you're paying us directly instead of going and buying them for more off the second market.
What kind of stats can you give me about Avastar? Like how many Avastars have been minted, or users, unique addresses, whatever you're tracking?
Sure, absolutely. So as of a couple hours ago, we had 8,650 Avastars have been minted, and that's out of 25,200 total. There's going to be 5,000 per series. We're in series 2 right now, and there's 5 series. So, and we have 494. We had 495 holders right now. Our goal for series 2 by the end of series 2 was to have 500 holders. So we're gonna blow past that in the next day or two, with still about 1,500 left to mint in series 2. And we've done about, let me look real quick because it's actually like a cool, good number and I want to get it right. We are in the art category on OpenSea, so you can go look at this as well. We've done about 165 ETH in volume on their second market in the last 7 days. The interesting numbers to me are our total volume on the project to date is 1,678 ETH. Our average price is 1.09 ETH, which is a lot higher than it costs to purchase one for 0.07. And I don't want anybody to think that they can just go buy one for 0.07 and sell it for an ETH. This is the average price. We have some extremely high value assets as well in Avastars that are extremely sought after already. We have some founders that are the ID number is 0 through 99, and then we have exclusives that were the ID numbers 100 through 199, and those have been selling in the range of anywhere from 5 to 20 ETH a piece over the last couple of weeks, and so that helps the price average go up quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
But if you look at like something like CryptoPunks, which has been on fire recently, I've made a ton of money on CryptoPunks over the last couple of weeks, and I've just went and degen into more NFTs as a result. But they've got about twice as many users. They've been around for about 3 years now. They've got twice as many users. The average price of the CryptoPunk is 1.27, so it's about 0.18 ETH higher than Avastars. Avastars is tracking extremely well. Again, CryptoPunks 3 years in has about 7,117 ETH in volume, whereas we had about 1,700. So, we're 1/4, a little bit more than 1/4 of their volume yet. And we're 5 or 6 months in where they're 3 years in. I'm incredibly bullish on my own product. I have to also disclose that I have also purchased so far about 750 of those 8,652 Avastars myself. So I'm spending my own money on my own stuff. I love
Eating
these
your own
things.
dog food.
Yeah.
No,
and
yeah.
I come from a Google background, so eating your own dog food is a very Google thing to do. It's something that's ingrained into me, is that you need to use your own product in order to understand it. And I made something I wanted straight up, and I can't resist going and scrolling through and buying Avastars. So all the money that I've been making off of all these CryptoPunks and autoglyphs and everything else, I've just been going and scrolling more Avastars as gas has been cheap.
I love it. Well, let's talking about roadmap for Avastar. So you've been on the scene for like 5 months. What excites you most? What's coming up?
So, we talk about DeFi a little bit here on here as well, I think, and we actually have our own utility token that we're getting ready to launch for Avastars. It will come retroactively. It'll be backdropped to people who already own Avastars, and then it will come with any Avastars that are minted going forward until we cap. So there'll be a total of 25,200 art tokens, Avastar replicant token. And this token will be needed, and it will be the only thing needed other than Avastars and paying the gas to create a replicant. So originally we were gonna maybe charge people like a 0.1 fee to create replicants, which is the breeder. These are the Avastars that you can actually breed. But instead we decided we're gonna exit to the community, the Avastars and the replicants experience, into our most loyal holders' hands. So they will determine the value of these tokens and how much a replicant token is worth. I mean, to us, it's worth exactly one replicant. And the other important aspect here is that when they create the replicant, we also burn the token. So we get nothing out of it. Like, we literally get nothing out of replicants. We're just going to provide the mechanism and the smart contracts to be able to create it. But the users are the ones who get to decide, what the value is there for themselves. So that's something I'm
Awesome.
really excited about. That's going to be probably in November that we launch that. I think we're trying to wrap up some stuff for it this month, but we have some other development things that are in the way of maybe pushing that out this month. And so we'll have to see where we end up. But I'm extremely excited about that. And then just to kind of bring it back to the original conversation about the metaverse, in the long run, this is just the beginning for Avastars. We needed to create the brand somewhere and begin it somewhere. So we've begun it. We started it with an excellent, durable, on-chain NFT collectible. But make no mistake, the name should be very telling. We're making Avastars. We're making avatars of the metaverse, and we intend for not this set of Avastars. These Avastars are 2D portraits, but the next version of Avastars that we create are going to be 3D avatars for the metaverse, and you'll be able to hopefully take these avatars across multiple different virtual worlds. They're going to be a standardized file type. That's a .vrm is a very standard avatar file type, and we have some amazing artists lined up for the development of these avatars and traits and clothing and everything else, and we have some great developers lined up to help us with the 3D part of it all. We're still a ways off from even beginning the development of that. We want to get through this first version of Avastars, and that's basically going to fund the next version of Avastars after that. We bootstrapped ourselves. It's worked out pretty well. As long as things continue down this track, we'll make a good little chunk of money that we are investing right back into hiring developers and people into the company. So yeah, the next version of Avastars is going to be 3D avatars for the metaverse, basically. And that's the journey we're on, is this avatar / identity post.
Awesome. Jim, we could talk about these for hours. I mean, just utterly fascinating, all of the stuff. But I think that's probably a good spot to leave it about all the exciting things you're working with Avastars and how that links back up into the metaverse and digital collectibles, all the things. Just last thought, where can my listeners find out more about you, about Avastars, about what you're working on? Where do you want to send them?
Sure, send them to my Twitter. Let's get some more followers. Jimmy
Oh yeah.
ETH. It's J1MMYETH. And that's probably the best place to find me online, the easiest place. The other thing is if you do join that Discord, the one I linked earlier was discord.gg/NFT. You'll find me there. You can also find us on the Avastars server, Discord server, which is discord.gg/Avastars. Avastars is just avatars with an S in there. I guess those are the easiest places to find me. And I'm pretty open book. So if you have some questions and reach out, I'd be happy to answer for any of your listeners.
Awesome. Well, I'll link all of those. Jim, really appreciate you taking the time today.
Man, I had a great time being on here. Thanks for providing me a platform to shill my wares.
Yeah, absolutely. An NFT degen like you know?
I know it's also really exciting. I want people to learn about what NFTs are, because I'm sure there's other gamers and collectors out there that just want an easier way. And this is an easier way to potentially make money off of collecting things.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Jim. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
There you have it. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate your support. Show notes, transcript, links, and more can be found on our website at altassetallocation.com. If you'd be so kind, please share this with anyone you think might be interested or get some value from this conversation. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out. I'm always happy to hear them. Lastly, if you're on YouTube, please like the video or subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the audio version of this, please subscribe to the podcast and or leave a review. This really helps more people find the podcast, and I really appreciate it. Thanks again, and hope you have a fantastic day. Happy investing. Happy investing. Happy investing. Happy investing. Happy investing. Happy investing.